Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and in this video we're going to talk about the Origin G12. It's the rover that we've been expecting from Origin, and what we have today is actually the warbond pre-sale version that's available to concierge, which means that tomorrow we'll likely bring on the full sale, and hopefully we end up getting a little bit more information about this, as well as being able to have the ability to buy this vehicle with credits instead of new money. We were lucky enough to get a full brochure on the vehicle today instead of having to wait till tomorrow, so I do feel like we have a little bit more information than we typically do on a Thursday sale. Now, this is a Rover, so the primary competition for this vehicle right now is going to be the Ursa. However, it really seems more like a hybrid between the Ursa Rover and the Cyclone Buggy, probably meeting somewhere in the middle as far as speed, control, function, and durability. Now, where the Cyclone comes as an open-air type of ride, leaving some exposure to the elements, this is going to keep you more in survival mode, like the Ursa being, encased inside this ship. Now, as far as the design is concerned, it's a strange-looking ride. It has wide-set wheels, which look like they probably give you better stability, giving you a wider stance, but they should probably also be a little bit more at risk to take on damage from hitting things. Compared to the Ursa, which has the 6 wheels sitting directly underneath of it, you may sacrifice a little bit of stability, but you're less likely to have them sheared off by hitting something. It looks like you're going to have great visibility from inside the cockpit area because you're surrounded by glass in front, on top, as well as some visibility to the sides, so that's nice aesthetically. Overall, it looks cool, but it's kind of an odd ship too, being a weird mix of Origin cool and kind of like a remote control car. On the interior, you have 2 seats that are likely going to serve as a remote turret operator, an EMP, or a radar person, as well as maybe a weapons controller on the various models, or maybe you just end up being the passenger. Now, the 600i Exploration version was supposed to come with a Rover, and we've been expecting that to be added into those packages at some point, and from what I've been seeing, you should now have the G12 Touring available as part of your package if you actually own one. Now, it would be logical that since the size is the same, and this is an item within that package for the ship, that you can really use any of these in your 600i, as well as having the option to really CCU between the different models in your package, basically meaning if you want a more combat-oriented version, you could technically put that in there. Now, speaking of the 3 models, we do have 3 versions. Up first is kind of your base model, the Origin G12. It's the touring model and costs $55. This is really the only model that comes with cargo, and it actually has a nice little cargo holder in the back. It drops down and you can put it in there. It holds 2 SCU of cargo, and it looks like it holds it well and safe, and it's actually kind of a cool looking system. This is also the only model that comes with actual guns. So you have 2 Bulldog laser repeaters on a remote turret. The speed for this version is supposed to come in at 50 meters per second, though all of these numbers are supposed to change. The Ursa, for comparison, is 40 meters per second, so about 10 less. The Cyclone base model is 48 meters per second, so it's a little bit slower there as well. So the Origin version is going to be the fastest of that grouping there. Now, when you really want to talk about speed, then we can start talking about the Origin G12R, the racing model, which is the same price as $55. This one comes with a lighter frame, it's got some lightweight but durable wheels, and strangely enough, it actually has an EMP. That EMP both being designed to keep you safe because you don't have other weapons on board, so maybe you disable ships that are trying to mess with you, or potentially in a race situation, you can disable some of your competition by leveraging your EMP. Speed-wise, it comes in at 55 meters per second. We already talked about the Ursa being 40, so the speed there is starting to climb a little bit, being a 15 meters per second difference. When we look at the Cyclone RC, the racing model there, that has a standard speed of 53 meters per second. However, the RC actually comes with an ability to boost, and that boost takes you all the way up to about 95 meters per second. So when you look at how often you can fire that boost versus how, that 2 meter per second difference in speed, the Cyclone RC is going to be the faster vehicle between the two. Now, the speed data there from a Cyclone RC is about a year old. I haven't personally tested an RC in a good while now, so I don't know how accurate that is, but I think that kind of balance probably holds out to be true. The Origin G12A, that's going to be your combat version of this vehicle. That comes in at $60. Now, what that's going to give you is a cool black color scheme. You also have 8 size 2 missiles as well as some countermeasures. You get fortified armored wheels, plus you get an armored frame on the vehicle. So basically, it has the ability to do more damage with 8 size 2 missiles, which is pretty good. I mean, a lot of ships bring less size 2 missiles than that. And you also get the ability to take a little bit more damage. Now, with that extra weight that you're carrying around, your speed drops down to 45 meters per second, which is a pretty minor sacrifice in the scheme of things. But you don't have cargo or any of the other real ability there, so you really are primarily a little more combat focused. Now, you can technically buy all of those today in a pack. You basically get one of each. It's a $155 pack if that interests you. But let's talk about some of the specs on this thing first to give a better idea. Now, the size here is going to be 7.2 meters by 5.8 meters wide and 2.7 meters tall, which is significantly larger than I expected this to be. When you compare that to a Cyclone, it's Cyclone 6 by 4 by 2.5. So you're talking about a plus 1 to 2 meters on each of the dimensions except for height. The Ursa is a little bit bigger than the G series, which is going to be 8 by 5 by 3.5. So it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit taller, and it's actually a little bit more narrow, and that goes back to what I was talking about before on the wheel stance. The components are a little bit interesting. It has a lot of what you would expect. For example, you have one vehicle size radar. A lot of these components are all going to be vehicle size. But where things get a little bit interesting is you actually have two vehicle size computers on board. When you look at the Cyclone and the Ursa, you only have one. So I don't know if that's an indication of a stats page error or if that's just something that this vehicle comes with and there's more functionality that we don't know about just yet. It comes with one vehicle size fuel tank, which you would expect. The other thing that I thought was interesting here was that it doesn't have any fuel intakes. Now, it says that the Cyclones and the Ursa both have them, though I've never really tested to see if I actually collect any fuel as a result of having them. But it would be interesting that two sets of ground vehicles have it and this one doesn't. So we'll need to see how that ends up playing out long term. You have one vehicle power plant and one vehicle shield generator, which matches both the Cyclone and the Ursa for both of those. And for some reason, it shows no coolers, but that can't be right unless there's some weird Origin technology on here that we don't know about yet, because both the Cyclone and the Ursa and basically every single vehicle or ship in the game has a cooler. So these have to have a coolers. I'm again guessing this is a stats page error. Now, normally I would hold off on doing a should you buy recommendation on this until we get to a point where we have the full sale available. So I will say this. I don't know what the price is going to be tomorrow for this. If the price is $55 today, I would say 60 to 65 is probably where it'll land tomorrow. The one that the combat version, that's 60, will probably end up closer to 70, maybe 75. But we just kind of need to see what those prices end up being. That being said, there's a really easy general recommendation when it comes to a should you buy on a ground vehicle. The amount of money that you put in real world dollars never aligns with what it actually costs for UEC to purchase the vehicle in game. Some of the worst ratios for that type of calculation are going to be the Cyclone line, the Ursa, with the maximum worst one being the Cyclone AA. Frankly, it just doesn't really add up. Now, I think there's a little bit of a reason for this, because CIG knows that, they've said the only way to get LTI from here on out is to buy warbond. But they also have the ability to do LTI, through and do CCUs. So they can't necessarily say that we're going to do a permanent UEC per dollar ratio for all of our vehicles without creating a problem in the economy somewhere. They also need to be able to fund the game, and that's how they're going to be doing that through these types of sales. So they're saying you want this and you want to be able to use it whenever it's flight ready, go right ahead. You don't have to earn the credits to buy it. That being said, if you're playing the game frequently, the cost to buy these in-game is incredibly minor compared to basically everything else. When you look at the cost of UEC, for example, to get a Cyclone in the game, it's like 26,000 UEC. A decent mining run will get that for you in 30 minutes. So there's not a lot of incentive to spend the money right now to buy one of these. That being said, you have the money. Do you want to spend it? I want to buy a Rover. I want to throw 40 to 60 bucks at CIG right now. Is it worth the money? I still say no. The reason that I say no right now is I have a hard time believing that these ground vehicles are going to have a purpose in the short term that makes them real necessities. They're fun. They're nice to have. You can get on the ground. You can drive around. It's different from flying a ship. You look at the combat versions right now, a ship in the air is always going to win against a vehicle like this. It's just the way the game works. Worst case scenario, even if those missiles are tracking me, I can pop some countermeasures, fly into space, come back, and you're not going to have time to replenish before I can get you in my ship. You know, some vehicles like the Ballista are a little bit more upscaled and are kind of just a different story overall. You know, for doing exploration, yes, in the future we've heard that, you know, there's going to be areas that you can't land your ship, so you're going to need to be able to take a ground vehicle out and, you know, do some driving to get to where you want to go. Long term is a different story, but if you're talking long term, you're also talking about the ability to start earning credits more readily and also be able to buy something a little bit easier like a vehicle. I think when you look at these and just say, I want to compare a Cyclone to an Ursa to a G12, what should I buy between those? You know, I mean, sure, like between the Cyclone and the G12, you carry one additional SCU in the Cyclone, or I'm sorry, in the G12 that you can't have in the Cyclone. You also have the ability to be interior to the ship, and when you look at the weapons as, you know, what you can have on board, the base Cyclone doesn't have any weapons, so that's a downside. So I think when you're looking at spending the money between those two options, it's clearly going to favor the G12. You spend a little bit more money to get it, but you have significantly more functionality, and you're not exposed to the weather, which is now a gameplay factor that you need to consider. When you compare the Ursa to the G12, the Ursa is cheaper. You know, you carry a little bit more cargo than you do on the G12. You know, you are going to be slower, but you have more crew that you can bring along. It's a little bit more durable, probably. You end up having the same firepower. I prefer the Ursa. The Ursa is not a cool looking vehicle. It's not. It's boxy and practical, but because it's practical, it does a good job and things. So if you're wanting a ground vehicle right now, my money's pretty much on the Ursa. I think the Cyclone is a fun vehicle that I think is worthwhile to have, but I would suggest buying it in the first. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the G series here, the G12 series, is going to be worth your money. It's cool. If you want to buy one, go right ahead. We're not talking about a large investment here. I think whenever we look at these low-priced items, if it doesn't get my recommendation for buying it now, if you have ships that you want to get LTI on later, Fleet Week is basically starting tomorrow. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of ships that are for sale that you don't normally have access to, and they're not going to have LTI. So if you plan on making a purchase in this next week, it makes sense to buy one of these Rovers right now, spend $50, knock that $50 off of your CCU upgrade, and then you have a ship that has LTI that you wouldn't have had LTI on otherwise. I think that's the real reason that you would buy one of these G12s right now, unless you're just infatuated with the design. Or if you have a 600i and you like the idea of one of the racer or the combat instead of the touring, then sure, do the CCU that you already have available to you, and then you can make that work inside of your ship. So that's my should you buy and first look on the G12, both the touring, combat, and racing. If you guys have questions on this, please let me know. I'm fully expecting there to be some Q&As coming soon. I also expect there to be more information about this coming soon. So if my recommendation here changes, I will go ahead and do that. Again, normally I wouldn't do the should you buy on a Thursday, but I feel like we got enough information on it today to give you a good recommendation, though I am open and honest enough to say that I will change this if I need to in the next coming days. So that's going to be it for now. Again, appreciate y'all watching. If you are longtime supporters and you want to get on Patreon, please feel free to hop over there and join a good Discord channel, good discussions, as well as the ability to start earning some referrals as I use your codes instead of mine. We'll have a lot more content coming soon. Fleet Week starting, and there's going to be some nice coverage of the Javelin and Idris and a bunch of other ships, so I'll be doing that as much as I can. So, thanks for watching. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.